Manisha, thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone for taking your valuable time and attending this presentation event. My name is Doug Pulaski. Been involved in JD Edwards for about a quarter century. I used to work at JD Edwards in the 90s, back when World was predominant, and the introduction of One World in 97 to E1 with the PeopleSoft acquisition up to current date. I'm joined by my team members, and this is going to be predominantly a demo. I'm going to go through a few slides to kind of set the background, but Suman Prasad, our CTO, and Ben Tyrell, senior developer and consultant, will be showing our very tightly integrated JD Edwards AP automation app. And we endorse the questions as they come in. Callie's going to help from the marketing side. So with that, let me go through the slides. The slides will be sent to everybody. So I want to keep, I'm not going to read from the slides, quite the contrary. I'm going to go through them pretty quick because I do want to get to the show and tell portion. As they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. So we want to get right into the demonstration, show you the integration and the functional and technical aspects of this app. So with that, let me first off explain K-Rise. K-Rise, we've been around since 2005. We were the very first company to introduce low code to the JD Edwards community. We've done hundreds of projects across over 100 companies, creating business process automation. So many projects are workflow centric, and that's especially true with AP automation. Our platform, like JDE apps, everything tools, there's no vendor lock. So if you can learn, just like JDE tools, you can learn our platform, manage things from a development or a project management. We have people day in and day out creating apps for their business with the EASYProcess platform. AP automation is just one of dozens of apps that sit on top of our platform. Like I said, like JDE apps tools. We have many name brand companies like Yum and Christie's and Lutron and Otis and Terminex, and JDE, of course, is made up of many SMB companies. Every one of our customers are referenceable. I think that speaks volumes. We do have the credentials, so we're OVI certified. If we ever need to do anything with inside of JD Edwards, and that's not the case with this app. And I'll touch on that, but JD Edwards is assigned to K-Rise System 99 codes. You're not going to have any object conflicts. They're very much aware of us. And like I said, that certification. We do some payment projects, so we're PCI certified. From a security controls, CPA certified for SOC 2, Type 2. So we're covering the bases there. Our base philosophy with how we work with JD Edwards ties hand in hand with what JD Edwards Denver touts. And you see that on the left-hand side. They promote low code, no code, UI front ends, browser-based UI front ends. They promote, and these are JDE slides. These are from JD Edwards Denver, getting to vanilla, avoiding customizations, consider other options first. So that's been our philosophy. There's zero changes required to run our AP app. The AP workbench is outside of JD Edwards. No KFA1 or customized elements in any way, shape, or form. And a little bit about K-Rise. We do projects across the business. We're focused in the spend, procure to pay, procurement area with this app. But we do many, we did a session earlier today on inventory with our customer Tredegar, dealing with finished goods and PLM. There's just some of the logos of the customers that we work with. With the demo, we want to make it as realistic as possible. On the upper left, you're seeing a handwritten, say, voucher that you want to say, take a picture of on the phone and submit it to OCR to go through the JDE match and automation voucher process. And we're dealing with other invoices for two-way, three-way. In fact, that's the various scenarios that we're going to be touching on when I turn it over to Ben and Suman. How you submit invoices, the fourth one there, that's what I just mentioned. If it's a handwritten receipt, use a phone app with the camera and upload it. Obviously, you can do drag and drop. The second one there is very popular, say stripping off PDFs from emails, and then either pressing the run or allowing it to go through a batch process, network scanners, and Textract accepts PDFs and JPEGs and TIFFs, so many different file formats from the perspective of network scanners. And the use case scenarios. We are going through a number of different 3 ways, everything from auto receipt where Textract scan OCR does 100% match on the AP, taking it to waiting for receipts, finding the receipt, and doing an auto post, to the very important exception scenarios, like being outside of pricing tolerance in JD Edwards. Suman, did you want to add any other thoughts to this or not?
No, you go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. And workflow is very, very centric to so many of the apps that we do for customers, especially this one. And as a matter of fact, Suman, I believe you and Ben will start out reviewing the workflow before actually getting into the demo, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And very, very powerful workflow. That can be personalized to everybody's JDE instance, and that's the fact of the reality. Textract. So we are a cloud SaaS app, and we utilize cloud standards out there, and Textract is one of those standards. What I like about it is the level of AI. Machine learning is a branch of AI. And that's what you're going to see with the initial scenario, is we're not using templates. We're simply, you can do templates. You can, define queries, work against tables and forms and raw data logic and control it. But we're doing a non-template approach. We're just saying, hey, Textract, how smart are you figuring out this AP invoice? And it's very, very good. That's what you're going to see. And obviously, what's nice about cloud-based standards is they're SaaS. Textract is SaaS, OCR-as-a-Service, and it's also pay as a service. Very, very reasonably priced. No setup required on your side. And they've got a large team of experts continually updating the app. And the results are quick, and you're going to see that real time with this demo. And so this is just one piece of, I mentioned having many demos, like in the area of spend. And I'm not going to read them out loud, but you can see there that we have everything from requisitioning, stop, nonstop, punch out. We show examples like with Amazon Business, to PO approved, to a buyer supplier portal, and other elements. And with that, at this point, Manisha, if you could turn Ben into presenter, that would be great.
All right, Doug, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, awesome. Okay, yeah, so like Doug said, we're going to show the AP automation app, and what I've got here is the workflow for the app. So this is built in our workflow designer in our IDE. So what you see here is what the application is actually going off of. So just to give a general overview of what's happening here, each request is a submitted invoice of some kind. So at the source status, this would define what kind of invoice it is or where it's coming from. So it can come through a vendor self-service portal, in which the vendor will have some options to create that into an invoice. They can do a PO flip, drag and drop, or manual enter. Other options here are through an email submission, or they can manually enter an invoice. You can do a drag and drop phone scan, or it can come from a network folder, which I'll show in a little bit here. And then any PDF or any image that needs to get scanned, as an invoice will go to the scan status. And in our designer, this is a dark blue status. This means that every request to the status will run on a batch. So once that batch runs, those PDFs and images, those invoices will go to AWS Textract to get scanned. And then Amazon will send us back the results, and then it'll go to this invoice entered status. And this is in the validation category. So this is where all of the validation happens for the invoices. So it can be an incorrect format. It could be that the vendor wasn't found in JDE. The PO was not found. Could be an invoice number duplicate, or could be that the PO and the vendor aren't matching. And there's some actions that you can take to rectify these issues. And once everything's rectified and a PO is found, it'll go down to this PO found status. And this is where the workflow kind of splits. So if the PO has any stock lines, it'll go to three-way matching, and that'll be this section right here. If it only has non-stock line types, then it'll go down to two-way matching down here. So for three-way matching, if it does have that stock line here, then it'll go to this wait for receipt status, where it'll continually check JDE for a receipt for that PO. And then once one is found, it'll try a three-way matching, and this is where it'll try to match the invoice to the PO. And then I'm going to go through an example of this, but if it can't match the invoice to the PO, it'll make the user do a manual matching. But if everything looks good, then it just goes to three-way matching and creates that voucher in JDE. There's also some tolerance logic. If it runs into an over-tolerance error, then it'll go up here where the user can request a PO change. And then it'll just wait for that change to happen in JDE before it attempts to do that three-way matching again. Then two-way matching is also very similar. The difference here is there is approval involved in two-way. So it originally involves approval by the original requester of the PO. Then once they approve, it will require approval by department. So this is an approval routing that's set up in the application. And then based on the amount, it will continuously ask for more approval by different users. And then once it's fully approved, that two-way voucher will be created. And then lastly, there is the non-PO voucher route, which the AP user can select it to be a non-PO voucher if it doesn't pick up a PO. And in this case, there's also a level of approval based on an approval routing in the application. And then once it's fully approved, it'll create that PO voucher in JDE.
Say, Ben, could you click some gears? I want people to realize this isn't just a picture you're working from.
Yeah. So like I said, this is actually the workflow is built in the IDE. There's some gear icons and other icons on each status here. Which, by the way, is all drag and drop. You can just drag statuses from the left here and add them to the canvas here. The gear icons is there's an arrival event and a complete event. The arrival event is what happens when a request reaches the status. So that's the logic that'll run in that case. For example, if you want to send out an email to a requester or an approver, that's where you would do that. The complete event is the logic that runs when a request leaves the status. The actions and conditions here, the actions are what a user can do to the status. So these are all the available actions, and then conditions are the lines coming out of the status. So these are all of the ones down here. And these don't have to match one-to-one. There could be situations where they may be different. And then we also have this actors icon, which actors aren't used in this application, but this is how you would assign certain users or groups of users to act on a certain status, and only they can execute requests at that status. So let's say you want to assign it to some user in your application or some role, or based off of some user property like address number, you could do that here. Okay, yeah, so that's the workflow that I'm going to be following for this demo. So I'll go ahead and log into the application as an AP user. And then you're greeted with this menu here. So I'm going to go into the AP workbench. And here you can see a list of all of the invoices that have been submitted in this app. You can see the status that they're currently at. You know, the statuses match up with what you see on the workflow here. You can see the OCR information that Textract passed back to us. You can see timestamps. You can also go into this view history button. So this will show you a complete workflow history with, you know, date, times, who did what, you know, comments if there are any. So you can see all of that right here. In addition, you can also see the OCR data. This one is a pretty big picture here, but if I go down to this PDF, go to the OCR data, you can see this is the PDF that was submitted for this request. And you can see the fields that Textract sent back to us. So everything's highlighted here. And yeah, so there's also filtering at the top. You could filter by, you know, status or anything else here. To kick off an example, I'm going to go into the invoice feeder page. And here is where you'll essentially, like the name says, you'll be able to feed invoices through various methods. The first is just a manual upload up here. The second is network queues. So these are folders that the application has access to, where it will continuously scan those folders and pick up any invoices that are in there. So you can see we have 2 of those set up here. They also have email queues. So this is monitored inboxes that you can set up. And this will tell you how many emails have been picked up, and you know, those attachments to those emails will be automatically submitted to the workflow as invoices. So I'll go ahead and just use the manual upload here for the first example. So the first one is going to be this PDF here. So I'll upload for scan. And then if we go back to the AP workbench, you can see it's sitting at the scan status, and the gear icon, if we hover over it, you can see that the status will be automatically processed by the workflow batch engine. So that's what I was talking about with the dark blue status. So we can go ahead and run the scan. And while that's scanning, so this is actually sending it to JDE, but while that's scanning, I can pull up the invoice here. So this is what we're dealing with. It's an invoice from Parts Emporium. We have 2 items here. We have a total amount of $15.85. No freight, no tax. So everything's filled out here. We have a PO number associated with it. And this PO does exist in JDE. So if we go back here, we can see it did scan, and now it's at the waiting for receipt status. So to see, you know, how it got here, we can go to the history. And okay, it actually did terminate now, but you can see it scanned, the invoice was entered, a PO was found, it waited for the receipt. It actually found the receipt for this PO in JDE. It tried the 3-way match, created the voucher, and terminated the request. So this one went all the way through the workflow and created that voucher in JDE without any intervention from me. So yeah, if we go back to this view history, we can grab this document number that it created. We can pull it up in JDE here. Open up P0411. Yeah, and we just pass in this there. Pass in this document number, and you can see here we have that total amount that we saw on the invoice. We have both lines here, and we also have as an attachment to this voucher that PDF that we uploaded. So that's there as well. So I'll go ahead and reverse this voucher. And we'll put in a second example here. So this one is going to be an example with freight. So let me upload this one here. And yep, going back to the AP workbench. Yeah, and we also have an option. I think I used this last time, but this will automatically run, or this will manually run that scan status instead of waiting for the batch engine here. We can also manually run the wait for receipt status as well. So I'll run the scan, and while that's scanning again, I'll go ahead and open up this invoice, which looks almost identical. The only difference is it has some freight charge on it. And so the total is a little more. So we'll see that here. It looks like it did get to waiting for receipt, so it's scanned. We can also see the invoice date, the subtotal, total, and it got the freight. Everything's here. Yeah, it's sitting at the waiting for receipt. If we automatically run, or if we manually run that, and we show the completed, it looks like it was complete. So it did terminate the request, and we got back that JDE document number here. And so if I type that in here, we'll see, yep, it has the 3 lines here. It has the original 2 lines from the PO, and then also a freight line as well. The same thing, it attached the invoice to these vouchers. So once again, I'll reverse this voucher. And then we'll go back to the invoice feeder and put in our next example, which will be, let me just make sure here. Yep, so it will be this one here. And we'll run that scan again. Yeah, so the difference with this one is the name on the invoice is, instead of Parts Emporium, we got Part Emporium, and then the address of the vendor is also incorrect. So the way this application works is it tries to use the name and the address to cross-reference the address book in JDE and retrieve that supplier address number. So we'll see that this gets caught at the incorrect format status, and we have the reason for it is that the vendor was not found. So if we click here, this will take us into the invoice editor. So vendor not found, and then here we can see that the vendor address number is blank, so we can manually type this in. We can see our lines here, and then at the bottom, we can just do a retry. And so this will put it back through validation. And if all is good, which it looks like it was, it'll make it to waiting for receipt. So the PO was found, and now we're sitting there. So if we go back to the AP workbench and run waiting for receipt, should see it disappear from our list here. Yep, and that was created. And this voucher is essentially going to look the same as that first voucher. What I'm going to do is leave this voucher in JDE for the next example. So we'll go to the invoice feeder once again. Actually, this one I am going to submit to the email queue. So just pull up my email here, and then I'll send an invoice to this AP automation inbox. Okay, and we'll attach this invoice here, and we'll send that to the monitored inbox. And then eventually, when that inbox receives it and this queue gets scanned, it'll submit this invoice to the workflow, just like the other ones. So go ahead and you can manually scan these queues by clicking on this button as well. So we just gotta wait for that email to come in. And it looks like it did. I saw the number go up here. So if we go to the AP Workbench, you should see, yep, this is the PDF that I sent over. So it's sitting at the scan status. It's in the workflow. So we can run the scan. And then once that's scanned, yep, it hits this incorrect format initially. And this is because of a duplicate invoice number. So this is another point of validation. And the way to fix that is just by reversing that voucher that we did before, since it's based off the same PO and has the same invoice number. So go ahead and reverse that. And then what we can do is, without making any changes to the invoice, we can just click on retry, and it should go through validation one more time. And then we run into another issue. It's that the PO is not found in JDE. So it's still at the incorrect format status after validating again. And this is because the vendor sent us the wrong PO number. So if we know the correct one, we can go in and just correct it there and then retry.
Say, Ben, also show the invoice image portion of the form at certain times, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I can show that right now, actually. So while it's sitting and waiting for receipt, I can show you the invoice image. Yeah, so this is what I was showing in the invoice history, in the invoice status history. So this will show you the invoice on the same page as the invoice editor. So you can take any of these values here and copy and paste and put them in here. I'll also show later, these are read-only now because it's waiting for receipt, but you are able to take these values and just click on them and they'll go directly in the text boxes as well. In addition to that, we also have notes functionality as well. So notes and annotations. So you can put things like arrows. Let's undo that. So let's say we want to point out that this is a wrong PO number. We put an arrow here. We can put a note, wrong PO number. Yeah, we can also put boxes in here. And these changes will get saved. So if you sign this to another user and another user has to look at this invoice, they'll be able to see your notes here as well. So if I just refresh this page here, should be able to see, yeah, so it did, it found the receipt and went through three-way matching as we'd expect, and then created that voucher in JDE. So that's 3913, same as that first one. So I'll go ahead and reverse this. Okay, so the next example is, let's go to that feeder. So the next example I'm going to show is a PDF that is over tolerance. I can show this here. So you can see at the line level, the unit prices are a little more than they were before. And this will actually be over tolerance based on the JDE tolerance rules that we have set up. I think we have a 5% tolerance on the extended price of the line. So we go to the AP Workbench. Should see, still sitting at the scan status, so let's scan that. And then once that's scanned, it'll be waiting for receipt, so found the PO number and so on. We'll run that waited for receipt batch job. And then we'll get it at the status three-way manual match. So if we click on this, it'll say some lines weren't matched to the PO. So as I said, if we're following the workflow here, at this try three-way match, it'll try to match together the invoice lines and the PO lines based on some logic on the unit price and the item number and so on. In this case, it couldn't match those together because the unit price was so off from what it actually is in JDE. So we have down here on the left the lines from the JDE PO. We have on the right the lines from the invoice. So we can move these up and down here. We can add them to the list if they're up in this box up here. And let's say we want to match this line in the invoice to this line in the PO, even though they have a different unit price. So we can just submit it like this. And then that'll refresh. And at this point, we submitted it for three-way matching. It tried to create the three-way voucher in JDE, but JDE came back and said that it was over tolerance. So now we're sitting at this three-way over tolerance status. So if we click into here, we have a couple options. We can reject the PO or we can request a PO change. So if we do this, we'll be able to add some comment here. PO needs created for this invoice. And we can assign it to some role that's set up in the application or some user. I'll just assign it to a user here, for which we can also form a lookup in this case. Assign it to Cecilia Watts. And then she shows up here, and then we can click on assign. And this will notify Cecilia Watts with the comment that we made. And so now this invoice is assigned to her. So she's responsible for creating that invoice in JDE and updating the PO, editing the PO in JDE and then saying that it's all good in this workflow. And then after that's complete, it'll go back to three-way matching and try again. So I won't go through that whole process because it's essentially the same after the PO is updated. But here is the email that Cecilia would have gotten. Shows the amount, the PO number, the comment that we make, and then it also attaches the PDF to the email as well. So that's that example. So for the next one, I'm going to show a two-way matching example. So let's go to the invoice feeder. And this one is going to be this PDF from Pens and Pencils. So go to our AP Workbench. We'll run that scan, and while that's scanning again, I'll go ahead and show you this invoice. This is an invoice from Allen Stationery. Ordered some pens and pencils, all totaling to $144.98. And this has a PO in JDE, but it's also a non-stock. So this will only require two-way matching. And that's what you can see here. So, just following the workflow again, it's going to try to two-way match. It's going to match the PO to the invoice lines. And then it's going to go for approval by the requester and then by the department. So it looks like it's assigned to this user, James O'Malley. And James would have gotten this email here, with the amount, the PO number. So if we log out of AP and log in as this James O'Malley user, then it'll display, since James is an approver, this list will only display invoices that are awaiting approval from this James O'Malley user. So we have the one that we just submitted right up here. So if I click on it, it'll bring me to the invoice editor, but everything is read-only. So down at the bottom, we can approve if it's all good. And then, yep, just looking at the history here, it was approved by James O'Malley. This one did not require two-way approval by department because the amount on the invoice was too little to do that. So it just went straight for the two-way voucher creation, which we can pull up in JDE again here. It was, yeah, 3915. Yep, so we got the 2 lines on the invoice and then the freight line as well. So go ahead and reverse this. So the next one is, oh, we got to log out of James, log back in as the AP user. So the next one, we got to go to the invoice feeder and upload this one from Software Consulting Services. Upload for scan. Yep, so this is going to be this invoice here, which is also going to go for two-way matching since it's a non-stock service item. So we have a total that is above 6,000 here. We have a couple of items on here, and it corresponds to this 5118 PO. So we ran the scan, and now it requires two-way approval by the requester, which in this case is Cecilia Watts. So once again, Cecilia as a requester would have gotten this email here, and she can click here to log in. And we'll click on this one and we'll approve. And then it'll disappear from her list. And then it creates that two-way voucher in JDE and then ends. So we have the 3916. And yep, same thing. It creates that voucher in JDE. Okay, and then we also have this example, which yeah, we'll log in as Vanessa once again. Yep, so this is going to be a multi-page example. So just to show you that Textract does support multiple page PDFs. So we'll go ahead and run the scan. And you'll see what it looks like when it comes back. Yep, so it looks like the PO was not found in this case, but if we click here, we can see it picked up all of these items. And just to show you what the actual invoice looks like, it's 3 pages long. Yeah, with items going all the way to the 3rd page and then the total on the last page. So it did in fact pick up that total and picked up all of the items from each page. Yep, that's working there. All right, and the next example to show is this DocuSign subscription. So something like this won't have, or something like this doesn't have a PO created in JDE, so we're just going to submit this as a voucher. So you see the voucher route. So while that's scanning once again, I'll pull it up. Yep, so just a simple invoice from DocuSign. Just have this one annual subscription and the total amount here. So we will, from the validation, it can't find a PO on that invoice, which is fine because we don't expect the PO to be existing here. So what we can do is just submit as a non-PO voucher. So we'll click on here. Yeah, and now this is going to be editable. We want to, since it's going to be a non-PO voucher, we can fill out the account number here. And it brings up this little widget where you can search through and select the account number that fits this line. And from here, we can go ahead and submit to JDE. And this one will go through non-PO voucher approval. So that's where this one will be sitting, and it will have gone to James O'Malley. And so this is where I'll log in as AP again. This is where the approval routes are defined in the application. So for something like a non-PO voucher that requires approval, it'll follow this route. So we have 2 business units set up here, which is what the approval is based off of in this demo environment. So something like the DocuSign subscription will go, well, the star none means that nothing under this amount will require approval. The -1 means infinity. So if it goes above the last approver, Paul Johnson will also need to approve. So if it's at least 4,000, then James O'Malley has to approve. And then at 10,000, if it's above 4,000 and less than 10,000, Monica will also have to approve. And then, like I said, anything above 10,000 will go to Paul Johnson. So we are at the level of approval for James O'Malley. So I'll go ahead and approve as that user. And we can see that right here. So we'll go into it. And then from here, we can approve as James. And then as you can see, the total amount was above 4,000, so it will go to that next level of approval, which in this case is going to be Monica Hunter. So we'll log in as Monica now. And yep, same thing. We can go ahead and approve. Yeah, and then it got through approval, which means that it created the non-PO voucher in JDE, which is what we can see by the status history up here. We got a document number back. And the same thing, we can search that document number in JDE and see that voucher right here. So we'll go ahead and log out as the approver and log in as AP one more time. So yeah, let's go to the invoice feeder and go ahead and select this next invoice here. It's going to be a monthly HR outsourcing fee. And we'll just run the scan here. Yeah, and we got yeah, PO not found again, which is kind of what we would expect. And for this one, we're only expecting to go to 1 level of approval since it's under that 4,000 limit. So we can click on non-PO voucher. Once again, we can submit with the account numbers, but we also have the option to consolidate these lines together. You know, since you can modify these lines. So let's say we want these all to be just one line for HR. So we can put the description here, and then we can just put this total amount in the total amount for the first line. And now they're consolidated. And I didn't bring this up before, but we do have these two tools here as well. So for the calculator, if we need to verify that the total on the items is equal to the total on the invoice, we can do it like so. We just have a handy calculator tool here. We also have comments and notes, so you can add some comments here. So we could say consolidated to one line and add that comment. So when we submit this for a non-PO voucher, and I'll put the account number here as well. Yep, so once we submit this to JDE, it will have to go to approval to James O'Malley, so I'll log in as that user, and we'll be able to see our comments and the changes that were made. Yep, so we see that comment by Vanessa here. So we'll go ahead and approve. And then this one was only this one level of approval. So it terminated the request and created that voucher. And there it is. So for this next example, I'm going to use the mobile app. So just give me a second here. I'll plug in my phone. Okay.
So with mobile app, the app we're showing works from responsive design. So like on my iPhone, I could use Safari or Chrome. And then we also support, if you look up EASYProcess on Google Play or Apple App Store, allowing camera usage as an example, or microphone. That's what Ben's gonna conduct right now, that use case scenario.
Yep, that's right. So I have the EASYProcess app at my home screen, so I'll just click on that. And then this will automatically log me into AP Automation here. Let me see, I might have, yeah, I don't think I was logged in. So yeah, I can just log into the application from my phone. So this is gonna be the same application that I was showing on the browser, on the desktop, but it's just formatted to a phone view here. So what we could do is go to the invoice feeder on my phone, and what I'll do is pull up that invoice. This is going to be a handwritten invoice from a restaurant here. And then here, I'll pull this up on my other screen, and then I'll show this. Oops, second. All right, there we go. Yep, so I'll show taking a picture. Since this is on a phone, you can use native phone functionality, so something like a camera. So if I'm manually uploading this invoice, I can just hit select invoices, and then I can hit camera, and I can just scan this invoice straight on my phone here, and then upload. And then we'll upload for scan, and then so now it'll enter the queue just as before. And then the second one that I want to do is very similar here. I'll pull it up on the other screen. This is going to be the same invoice, the same handwritten invoice, but it's going to be for $1 more, and these line items won't match the total. So I'll scan this one as well. Yep, so let me just pull up my camera and scan this. Okay. All right, we can upload that for a scan. So now both of those invoices have entered the queue. So if I pull this up on the desktop again and go to my AP workbench, oh, actually, let me log out, log in as AP again. Yeah, go to my AP workbench, and we can see both of these images that I scanned right here. So both of them got vendor not found. I think it was too dark to see that that vendor name, but we can correct that from here. So if we know the vendor number, so 6376, and then we can also see the scanned items. So it looks like it did miss a decimal here. Just because it was a phone scan, and the total was 114.55 in this particular example. So if we just retry from here, we just get a duplicate invoice number warning. So yeah, I'll just add that and then retry. Yep, and then the PO is not found, so it runs into that validation error, but we kind of expect that, and we can submit this as a non-PO voucher. Yeah, and then from here, we can enter in the account number. So for this, let's say we're looking for some account number that matches meals. So that would be this one here. Copy it to both the lines, and then submit to JDE.
And that compound query that our search that Ben just showed with account numbers, so many people comment on how important that is, that we're working real time against JD Edwards.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to the AP workbench here, and we have that second one that we scanned here. So this one has an incorrect total. So once I correct, it looks like I missed a decimal point there, but and
Ben, could you show the invoice image too, just to show how Textract picked up the handwriting elements?
Yeah. And this might be a little big just because it's for my phone.
Okay.
But yeah, it did pick up the elements here. So we see the 8025. Yeah, the tax here as well.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yep. Okay, yeah, so that is what the image contained. So if I try to, also the vendor number wasn't found, so let me correct that. 6376, and we'll go ahead and retry. Yep, and then we just need to fix this duplicate invoice number. All right, and then we run into this error: invoice lines and total amount are not matching, which is what we expected. So yeah, we could use the calculator to fix this. So yeah, we got the 105 item total, 115 total here. So if we add up the item total and the tax and then subtract the total, we could see there's $1 missing from here. So one solution that we could do, and this may be different depending, but we can make an adjustment line. So I'll just put the description as adjustment, and then we'll just put $1 here. And this will fix that discrepancy between the total and the line. So yeah, I could put in my account numbers here and submit as a non, or we'll go ahead and retry just so we know that it's actually validated. Yep, and it looks like it was validated. It's all good, but the PO number was not found, which we expected. So we'll submit it as a non-PO voucher. And submit to JDE. And then after that's done, it will submit to JDE and then terminate the request. Okay, yeah, so I have one more example that I want to show real quick. Go here, we'll show it's another three-way example. So I'll go ahead and scan it, and while that's scanning, show you one more time here. So this is the first set of invoices that we saw from Parts Emporium. It's just that the invoice lines here won't match with the PO lines on the invoice, and you'll see that. So yep, it's that waiting for receipt. And then we'll run into this three-way manual match once again. And you'll see there's three lines on this particular PO, since this it was a slightly different PO than the other ones we were working with. So here we can, it couldn't tell which PO line this invoice line matched to, because it had the same unit price, it had the same quantity. There's no way to really tell which line it was attached to, 1 or 2, but we can do that as the AP. We can go in here and assign it to, let's say, line 2, and then submit from here. Yeah, and then if I show completed, yeah, we can see that this example is complete with this JDE document number here. So just to show you this one, and if we go into the details, we'll see it did in fact match with lines 2 and 3, which is what we set up. Okay, and that's all the examples I have to show. I did want to go over things like vendor preferences. So this is a set of preferences that we can set up. When they have these things checked, they can make the invoice number unique every time, so you don't have to go in and manually update that. If you have a vendor that's sending you the same invoice number every time. We can also make this vendor a non-PO vendor, so if they don't have a PO, automatically submit as a voucher. And we can also consolidate invoices to one line automatically, and then add a remark to that line automatically as well. And we also have application-wide configurations as well. You know, there's a lot of different configurations here, some matching conditions, you know, some editable statuses, default currency, default business unit, and so on here. So everything is configurable here. And yeah, I think that's just about everything I wanted to show.
And great job. And Manisha, is it all right to go a couple of minutes over with the questions portion?
Yes, that's up to the panel.
Okay, good. Why don't we get, it's almost, we're almost at the 1 hour mark. So who has the questions? You, Manisha, or Kelly? Who has them? For the
I have
Q&A. Okay, go right ahead.
All right. First one is, how are formats validated? You started with an invalid format.
Suman or Ben?
I can answer that. So there are many ways it will hit an invalid format. As you saw, it could be PO not found, it could be vendor not found, or it could be amounts not matching. So there are rules that we have. We check against these rules, and based on that, we mark that particular reason for the error and hit the incorrect format. Once the AP fixes it, then it goes back and retry, and then passes to PO found status.
Very good. Are there other questions, Manisha?
Yes, we do have quite a few questions.
Okay, let's just run through them.
All right. Hi, are approvals routed tolerances, are they the ones defined in JDE or are they defined in your app? Is this software capable of multi-language?
Okay, let's just take one at a time. Go ahead, Suma.
Yeah, the approval routings are defined in our system, but all the times if you have this in JDE Edwards, we can take it from JDE Edwards. As you see, it's a very similar structure as you will have in JDE Edwards, or even some other system that you have. We can use that. This software is capable of multi-language. Yes.
Yes, we use a Google API language for multi-language and formatting and localization. What's the next question?
Are you required to create a template for each vendor style of invoice?
No, that's something we mentioned at the very beginning. You can bring it's a template-free solution. You drag and drop your invoice, and with the help of Textract, we intelligently scan for all the invoice data, including addresses and PO numbers.
But I do want to add, our app also enables template-based logic using queries, tables, forms. Correct, Suman?
Yes, that's correct.
But this example here, we're focused on AP invoices, so we just created that templateless setting, which people like because it's so powerful.
Perfect.
All
And
right,
this is
next
quite
question.
this is a long one, so I'll do the beginning of it, and I'll probably send this guys to you personally.
Okay.
The program that you demonstrated, was that AWS or from KRISE?
That's from KRISE. AWS is a tool we use for Textract, but the workflow, the JDE integration is part of our platform, is our AP automation product.
Okay. What made you decide to use AWS for your OCR tool instead of the others?
It's a very powerful tool, as we have seen so far. We have many other, like Doug said, OCR-based solutions where we scan, say, W2s or product specifications, or use queries to read other type of data, other type of forms. And while doing that, we learned that their expense and invoice features are much more powerful than what we had before, which were more template based, where you have to specify the spacing and the rows and the columns. We find this so far much more powerful. We also like how this is all in the cloud, so there is no installation. We also happens to be in the cloud with our own platform, so that provides us a very seamless integration. Next question.
AWS is an example outside of AP automation. Jeremy, we recently did a webinar with our client Michelman. They're in Cincinnati. They use JDE. It was a paperless, fully digital work order automation deployed on Zebra tablets with scanning. Jeremy, explain the OCR scanning requirements for Michelman, just as an example of something outside of AP automation.
Yeah, so for them, we do a lot of scanning off the tablets. So you can scan item numbers or work order numbers, that sort of thing. And the system will take it in and put it into text boxes for entry inputs, and also works as validation.
Yeah, and they had thousands of like safety material documents too, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Next question.
So is there a limit to the number of documents or invoices that can be uploaded in a batch of documents?
There are limits. Every cloud system provides some kind of quotas and limits, but they are very, very I would say they're not something that will be a showstopper. You're looking at probably 100 invoices a minute and those kind of limits. In case if you want to expand your limit, you can bring your own AWS account so that you're not tied to our AWS cloud accounts. There are many ways that can be addressed if needed, but so far we don't see this becoming a bottleneck. AWS happens to have a very large bandwidth to handle.
All right. Next question is, can you handle third-party freight, and also like landed cost, update the last in cost of multiple items on a PO?
You saw the example we showed for the freight, and if the landed cost is about if you have
Yeah, so third-party freight, Suman, we just completed a demonstration with Rockline Industries, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, contract manufacturer, and Jeremy, their app required integration with Uber Freight. We did APIs for that, correct, Jeremy?
Yeah, that's an API provided by Uber Freight that we integrated.
Okay, so that's one example. So we do have many other examples, and that type of third-party integration, we successfully work with that on many projects.
Okay. Can you delegate invoice exceptions to different users based on business unit? For example, all plant M30 invoices will go to person A, and where plant invoice B40 will go to person B.
Absolutely. The incorrect formatted status, as you saw, was all going to the AP. So pretty much in our system, we kind of, in our demo, we assume that AP just works for one headquarter handling all business units. But you also, we have those business units and something that you can configure at the user level, and then we can assign who should be assigned for those particular invoices based on business units. So that's all possible, as you said.
Okay. When verifying the supplier address book number, are you using both the name and the address?
We are using, yes, both name and the address. A name that we read from the logo and the address as printed.
Okay. Also, can you handle prepayments and progress payments?
I don't think I understand that question. Can you try again?
Prepayment and progress payment, yeah, and I think what that is I have an idea, but I think it's best reserved as a discussion point. It shouldn't be an issue. I mean, just about anything that we whiteboard with our clients, and there's many scenarios beyond what Ben demonstrated today, we usually can always handle it as long as we can properly process flow the use case scenario, in this case with prepayment and progress payments. So we'll follow up on that one, Manisha.
Okay. Can users review and approve two-way vouchers in email without login to, I think it's the portal?
Yes. So a scenario that we did not demo was in the email. You can have a link-based, a hyperlink. When you click on it, and you can just click send through the email, which will trigger an approval or deny from our workflow. That's something we implement all the time, right from the email.
Okay. Have you implemented this process in Canada? What about the province of Quebec with level 2 taxes?
The answer is yes. This has been implemented globally, where we're dealing, Suman, like with multiple VAT and even custom tax fields in JD Edwards, right?
Yes.
Okay. Is the duplicate invoice process handled by JDE or by your app?
We use JDE to check. So it was a real-time query to JD Edwards to verify. So it was based on JDE information.
Okay. Are the invoice images sent over to JDE, or are the images retained in the software that was demoed?
Images was retained in the software. The PDF itself was sent to the JDE.
Okay, thank you. Can you submit an invoice for payment to a software other than JDE, i.e. NetSuite, with little or no custom development?
What you saw, the main part of this demo was, a scanning workflow and the JDE integration. We have worked with customers where, in one example, they force us not to use JDE for any endpoint, and we end up and they ask us to use REST API through Dell Boomi APIs. So yes, if you can provide us the endpoint to your other system, everything is done on our low-code platform, which has REST APIs to connect to if we cannot do business functions or orchestration. So
yes. So as an example, NetSuite, if they have a defined, it's public defined REST contract dealing with invoices. We didn't get into details, obviously, with our platform, but under integration, we have SOAP Web Services. We have a very robust REST iframe integration. So the answer is yes.
Okay. We have quite a few more. Does it do validation of the tax amount based on zip code of the customer or branch plant where items are received?
In the demo we showed, we relied on JDE Edwards to do all the tax validations and, or I should say the amount validation. The taxes were as they were received from the invoice. So we relied on JDE Edwards to do matching if invoice is in excess or low, and if it hit it should hit your tolerance limit. That's the logic we relied on. We did not use JDE to calculate the taxes.
Okay. Does it use VMA process for PO invoices?
BMA?
VMA, yes, VMA.
Yeah, Suman, I think that's a follow-up discussion, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, yeah, we'll just do a follow-up on that.
Okay. Which OCR interface does it use? Also, is it compatible to Oracle OCM?
It uses Oracle, sorry, AWS, Amazon Textract for scanning, and we don't need Oracle OCM for this. It's all in one part of our solution.
Okay. Costing of the solution is fixed fees or per invoice processing?
Yeah, this is Doug. I can answer that. We have a suite-based pricing that's categorized. As an example, Amazon Textract OCR pricing is per scan. It's very, very reasonable. We have a pricing point with one SaaS fee covering license support, e-learning if you want that, the full AWS deployment, and 100,000 invoices a year. Okay, so that's if you have 8,000 a month or even 10,000 a month, we're very, very flexible with that. Bottom line is with Amazon pricing, it is very reasonable, right, Suman? And we do have these tiers factoring the number of scans. Obviously, if somebody's doing 250,000, that's that's something that we need to discuss. But for most JDE companies, when you're dealing with, as an example, the one tier example I was talking about, 100,000, that's very, very easy for us to manage, right, Suman?
Yes, so to quickly say, they answer the question, we have 3 tiers and up to a maximum of 100,000 invoices. We do not charge on per invoices basis. So if whichever tier you set in, you pay one price.
And our admin is configured if the users have an AWS account and simply want to be billed directly for the OCR services. That's another option too. We built that into admin. Okay.
All right.
Yep.
We have one more.
One more, okay.
It's quite a long one, Doug. I've sent it to you in the chat as well. It's the how did you separate out PO versus non-PO related invoices? DOCO, DCTO, KCOO fields.
Yeah, I can answer it at a very high level. I understand it can have a lot of details, but yeah, the logic is flexible, how we separate it. Right now, our separation was pretty much based on the line type on the purchase order. So if we see it has stock line type S, we send it to stock based, which is a three-way match. Otherwise, we send it to two-way match. We work with customers where they require everything has to be received and everything has to go to three-way match, no matter what, stock, non-stock. Or we have customer where they use company codes to do this separation. Those are very flexible logic. That's part of our platform, low code, and we implement those things as part of your requirement.
Okay. It's another question. How did you send the invoices to JDE? And excuse me if I'm getting this wrong. Via the EDI F47041, 42, and 44 tables for the PO invoices and F0411Z1 F091101 for the non-PO invoices?
We used business functions for all type of transactions. So we have different business function sets for two-way, three-way, and voucher. We also have a stand-in for orchestration endpoints. So we can also switch to REST APIs and call your orchestration endpoint for the integration. Our examples did not have any Z file, but we have to work with customer where we have sent this information through Z file.
All right. And lastly, did you need to customize any of the standard JDE matching for the PO related invoices?
No, not everything that you saw in the demo has no JDE customization to it. It was all standard master business functions working with working with.
But I do want to emphasize, over the last 2 years with 9.2 orchestrations, so many of our projects are orchestration based. It's really a client decision with AIS orchestrations. It does require work on their side to then match the values with our orchestration mapping service. Business functions, those are automatically enabled through the JDE INI.